Friendship faded after my mom's death. Deb and Tina judge my choices while my grief goes unnoticed. I feel abandoned and lost. I am a 32-year-old woman feeling heartbroken and entirely misunderstood by my lifelong best friends, Deb, who is 33, and Tina, also 33. We have been friends since we were 6 years old, and now that we are all 33, I find myself struggling with our changing friendship dynamics. I initially met Deb in kindergarten, and soon after, I was introduced to Tina, creating an inseparable trio. Over the years, however, our friendship dynamics have transformed, and it is challenging for me to process. When Deb moved an hour away during elementary school and I relocated across the country in 2007, we made every effort to remain close despite the distance. Yet, as time passed, Deb began to drift away, especially in high school, while Tina and I grew even closer. Despite our attempts to include Deb in everything, she seemed to be forming new friendships and distancing herself from us, and we tried to accept that. Tina and I became so bonded that she feels like a sister to me. Our connection is unique, but I have always struggled with the tension between her and Deb. It seemed as though Deb was irritated with Tina for reasons she never fully articulated, and her actions were perplexing. She would decline invitations, frequently make sarcastic comments, and show minimal interest in preserving a close relationship. However, when we inquired about her feelings, she would always assert that everything was okay. Even during college, the distance among us appeared to widen. Deb would occasionally confide in me regarding her growing resentment towards Tina, yet she avoided discussing it directly with Tina. Tina would sometimes call me in tears, confused about why Deb had seemingly started avoiding her. It was heartbreaking to feel caught in the middle, trying to maintain peace without truly knowing why Deb was behaving this way. One of the most distressing moments occurred in 2015 when Tina lost her estranged father. I understood the depth of her pain and did my utmost to support her during that difficult time. Losing a parent is beyond comprehension, and I wanted to be there for Tina in every possible way. In 2019, Tina got married, and I was honored to serve as her maid of honor, supporting her throughout the process. I traveled across the country for her events, helped organize her shower, and did everything I could to make her wedding day flawless. However, everything changed when she decided to host a destination bachelorette party. I was in a challenging financial situation, having just graduated from graduate school and struggling to secure employment. I had already spent $1,000 on the dress, travel, and various wedding-related expenses, and the bachelorette party would have exceeded my budget. I explained my circumstances to Tina, but she appeared unable to comprehend. Deb was also unable to attend, so neither of us went, although I promised to make it up to Tina afterward when my finances improved. Tina was clearly hurt and later remarked that she had the worst bridal party ever, because we were not there. I ended up borrowing money from family and flew to her second local bachelorette party. In 2020, unexpectedly, Deb and Tina seemed to resolve whatever had been troubling them. They were close again, acting as though nothing had transpired, yet neither of them explained the change in their relationship. Meanwhile, in late 2021, I was emerging from a 3-year emotionally abusive relationship. It was an incredibly difficult period, and I was a mess. I had recently relocated to a new state with my ex, only for him to betray me and end our relationship. I returned home, heartbroken, and although Deb and Tina offered their support, I sensed that Deb was critical of my choices, and I could feel judgment in her words. Later in 2022, Deb became engaged, and I was genuinely thrilled for her and wanted her happiness. She asked me to be a bridesmaid. During that same year, I also met my now husband, and we began dating. Unfortunately, in late 2022, my mother unexpectedly passed away. She had been my primary parent, and the devastation was overwhelming. Losing her shattered my world, leaving me to grapple with the grief and navigate life without her guidance. My father lived hours away, and I was tasked with managing my mother's estate and her house. In 2023, I experienced a miscarriage and various physical complications, which only compounded my emotional distress. Tina flew in to visit me in mid-2023. Then, late in 2023, my grandmother passed away, and I lost my job due to the overwhelming grief. The burden felt like too much to bear. I was consumed by sadness, trying to manage my feelings while Deb was simultaneously planning her wedding. I was doing everything within my power to support her while struggling with my own emotions, but she appeared upset and judgmental whenever I spoke with her, which was painful. Tina also made comments that stung. I had hoped she would understand since she had lost her father, but instead, she said things like, "Well, at least you have your dad to dance with at your wedding," and "I had to deal with my dad's estate by myself, so you should be able to manage this too." It felt as if she was downplaying my grief and making me feel guilty for not coping the same way she had. In early 2024, Deb married, and I attended the event as a bridesmaid. I had secured a new job and was doing considerably better. I lived independently and maintained a long-distance relationship with my now husband. After a little over a year of dating, he decided to enlist in the military. A few months after he joined, we became engaged. I finalized my mother's estate, and I was thrilled to begin a new chapter of my life with him, trying to find happiness without my mother. When I informed Deb and Tina of my engagement, their responses were incredibly hurtful. They acted as if I were making a hasty decision and expressed critical opinions. Deb even said he was just going to cheat on me, and both indicated that I would be crazy to relocate to his duty station. It felt like all their judgments came from a place of negativity, leaving me struggling to defend myself. The breaking point occurred when I chose to elope at the courthouse a few months after my engagement. I knew I could not handle the stress of a large wedding without my mother's presence. All I desired was a quiet, intimate ceremony, but that choice seemed to upset both Deb and Tina. When I shared the news, they behaved as though I was doing something wrong. They did not seem genuinely happy for me, and the support felt insincere. I recognized that they disapproved of my decision, but their lack of understanding caused me deep pain. Deb told me I was putting undue pressure on them to be happy for me due to my mother's passing. She said it was my decision to proceed in this manner, and I had to accept the consequences of that choice. We ended up getting married at the courthouse on Tina's birthday in the summer of 2024, which made me feel terrible. My husband was on military leave, and it was the only date that worked for our immediate families to be present. When I approached Tina about it, she said she was fine with the date, but I later discovered she had been telling others that it was weird for me to choose that day. She requested to fly in for the ceremony with her husband, but then wanted us all to celebrate her birthday after my ceremony. I explained that while I loved her, I did not want to exclude my other friends, and it was a difficult decision for me due to the pressure I was facing. After that, all I received was a brief message saying, "Okay, have fun." On my wedding day, I wished Tina a happy birthday early in the morning and made a birthday post for her on social media. Deb also shared a birthday post. Later that day, both Tina and Deb finally reached out to wish me a happy wedding day, but it felt empty. The absence of my mother weighed heavily on me, and all I wanted was their support, which never materialized. To add to the chaos, two of my immediate family members nearly got into a physical fight at the restaurant where we had dinner. A month later, I thought it would be nice to organize a small girls' night out to celebrate with my friends. I invited both Deb and Tina, though I understood they would need to fly in. Deb was unable to come, but Tina attended, and we had a fantastic time. She appeared genuinely happy, which uplifted my spirits, yet the underlying sting of everything still lingered. Afterward, matters took a turn. As the night concluded, one of my local friends became intoxicated and started shouting at me, which overwhelmed me. Tina was in the car with me, and I began to cry, expressing my wish for everyone to refrain from causing drama for just one day. Somehow, my wedding came up, and I mentioned the possibility of not having a bridal party or only including my sister. Tina's demeanor changed suddenly. She began to cry, but she would not explain why. I recognized it wasn't the right moment to bring that up and immediately felt awful. The following evening, I took Tina out for dinner to express my gratitude for everything she had done, but I still did not gain clarity on the reason for her upset. Deb later called and asked probing questions about my bridal party choices. It felt as though both were disappointed in me for not complying with their expectations. A few months after relocating to my husband's duty station, I had not heard much from Tina. She occasionally replied to texts but never called. I attempted to check in with her, but she appeared uninterested in maintaining contact. I adapted well and secured a high-paying job in my new city. Months later, Tina finally admitted that something I had remarked at my bachelorette party had hurt her, which took me by surprise. She claimed I said, "I can't rely on anyone but my sister, which is why I want only her in my bridal party." I was shocked because I never expressed such sentiments. I did not argue about the exact wording and assured her that I was genuinely sorry for causing her pain. She stated she forgave me, but it led her to reevaluate our friendship. Despite my apology, she remained distant. Currently, Deb and Tina are closer than they have ever been, leaving me feeling abandoned. They interact like best friends once again, but I continue to grapple with confusion about everything. I have always been a people pleaser, and now, I feel like a villain simply for attempting to cope with the tragedies I have faced. I miss my best friend Tina, and I cannot comprehend what has transpired. It feels as though my grief and choices have been met with nothing but condemnation. Part of me wonders if she is upset about not being my maid of honor, as I was for her. It is difficult not to feel judged for the decisions I had to make for my emotional survival. I am unsure of what went wrong. I genuinely want to understand where I went astray and how I can proceed in my friendship with Tina. In summary, I have been best friends with Deb and Tina since childhood, but over the years, our friendships have become strained. Despite supporting each other through significant life events like Tina's father's passing and my mother's death, I have increasingly felt judged and misunderstood. Deb and Tina have both criticized my life choices, particularly regarding my recent engagement and elopement. After dealing with an immense amount of grief and personal struggles, I have tried to maintain our closeness, yet now they appear to act like best friends again, leaving me feeling abandoned. I am unsure if they are upset over things I did not even say or if I have somehow failed them. I miss the friendship we once shared but feel hurt and confused by their distance. What should I do? Story 2. Caught off guard as my sister and her boyfriend slept downstairs, contradicting my wife's text. Trust shattered in my own home. I, a 40-year-old male, and my 39-year-old female spouse have been married for 15 years, and currently we are experiencing disagreements on fundamental issues. My 45-year-old sister and her 57-year-old boyfriend visited unexpectedly. Last night, my sister and her boyfriend arrived, claiming they wanted to drink, enjoy themselves, and play games. I was caught off guard by their visit. Earlier that day, I had a phone conversation with them, during which they assured me they would not come over since our mother was at my house. They also knew I had work that night, so their sudden arrival was entirely unexpected. This is not the first time they have shown up late at night for drinks and laughter, but I'm typically present during these gatherings. When I'm not, they usually do not stay the night. Even when they have stayed over, I am generally home. I feel more secure knowing I am there, particularly with another man in my house when I am not around to protect my wife and children. Tonight felt different. I know my sister's boyfriend is aware of the ongoing issues between my wife and me, and he had previously attempted to mediate our differences a couple of weeks ago. My sister is also clearly aware of the discord in my marriage. My wife has openly admitted to everyone, including both my sister and her boyfriend, that she does not love me and does not even like me. Before my shift began, I was already feeling exhausted. I had spent the morning with my 5-month-old son, trying unsuccessfully to nap. I achieved only about 30 minutes to an hour of fragmented sleep, and I couldn't rest again before heading to work because my daughter returned home. My wife was out shopping with our other 2 daughters, which I understood as they were gathering supplies for school projects. However, she was aware of my fatigue. She expected my son and me to nap together, which did not happen. Therefore, to say I was worn out when I finally got home would be a considerable understatement. I acknowledge that my extreme tiredness, bordering on sleep deprivation, could cloud my judgment and cause me to be more irritable than normal. It is significant to recognize this, as it may skew how I interpret what I viewed on the security camera footage this morning. My sister and her boyfriend spent the night. I had believed they were not coming at all, and was looking forward to a peaceful morning of rest before taking my children to church. This sudden change in plans, especially after their explicit claim that they weren't coming over, was already quite disruptive, but what I discovered on the camera was exceedingly distressing. This morning, I found out that my wife had sent me a text at 1:30 a.m. informing me that my sister and her boyfriend were sleeping in the upstairs guest room. I did not see this message until I woke up later. Upon returning home at 5:30 this morning, I noticed a vehicle in my driveway and presumed it belonged to my sister and her boyfriend. I entered and saw them there. It was at that point I decided to check the security camera footage. Both my sister and her boyfriend were lying asleep on the couch downstairs, which contradicted my wife's message that they were upstairs in the guest room. This morning, my wife stated that my sister's boyfriend had taken my sister upstairs to the guest bedroom to rest, and he was meant to be up there too. Meanwhile, my 5-month-old son was sleeping in our bedroom, and my other 2 daughters were in their own rooms. Yet when I arrived home, both my sister and her boyfriend were downstairs on the couch. I am entirely perplexed about what transpired. This situation is troubling on multiple fronts. My wife and I are currently in a challenging phase, working to mend our relationship. Or at least, I presumed we were. Observing her engaged in an intimate conversation, filled with laughter and giggling, with another man, especially after witnessing them prepare sandwiches together in the middle of the night and share drinks, while my sister was asleep with my 5-month-old son on the couch along with my sister's boyfriend, pulling my wife's chair closer to him and them, leaning in to whisper, felt like a significant violation of trust. It led me to question her dedication to our relationship and intensified my feelings of insecurity. It was not solely about the conversation itself, but the context, the late hour, the proximity, the whispering, the laughter, the late-night sandwich preparation, the drinking, and all of it occurring in my home while I was away working to support my family. It felt disrespectful and profoundly unsettling. The consumption of alcohol adds another layer of concern for me. Based on my past experiences, I know that alcohol can lower my wife's inhibitions, increasing my anxiety about the circumstances. This anxiety is exacerbated by a prior incident from a few months back when my sister and her boyfriend visited late at night, as they often do, to drink and chat. During one conversation, my sister's boyfriend made an incredibly inappropriate and crude remark regarding his own anatomy, specifically bragging about the size of his penis, directly to my wife in front of my sister. This blatant disrespect and violation of boundaries deepen my mistrust and lead me to question the nature of their interactions when I am not present. Moreover, I am aware that my sister's boyfriend has a history as a convicted child molester. While I prefer not to judge him for his past, this information adds unbearable layers of anxiety and fear to the situation, especially with my children in the house. To complicate my feelings further, my wife has stated that she does not even like my sister's boyfriend. She merely tolerates him because of my sister. This makes her late-night interaction with him even more confusing and alarming. This morning, I attempted to discuss these events with my wife indirectly. I asked her how her night went, and she replied that it was good. I then inquired about our conversation and what they had discussed. She instantly became defensive and asked why I was accusing her of infidelity. I was taken aback. I had not mentioned anything regarding cheating. I only sought to understand what they had talked about. She claimed they discussed her son, but stated that she did not want to share that information with me. This response feels insufficient and raises further questions. Her defensiveness, along with her vague and dismissive replies, only amplifies my concerns and leaves me feeling more confused and hurt. Her lack of clarity has intensified my distrust. I attempted to confront my wife about this directly. The situation quickly escalated into a heated argument. She remains evasive and refuses to respond to my inquiries about their conversation, regardless of how innocently I phrase them. Any question I pose is promptly redirected as an accusation of infidelity. She asserts that I have trust issues, which I acknowledge. I indeed have trust issues, and they are not unfounded. I have been transparent with her about everything, believing open communication is vital in a marriage. Her response, however, is that she chooses to trust me and refrains from questioning me, even when she has concerns. This response feels incredibly dismissive and represents a glaring double standard. It appears she prioritizes avoiding her discomfort over addressing my valid concerns and rebuilding trust. I find her approach of merely choosing to trust, without seeking clarification, particularly when issues arise, to be problematic and unhealthy. A marriage is a lifelong commitment, and partners should feel at ease expressing their concerns. Personally, I understand what it feels like to be misunderstood and to have my feelings dismissed as accusations of cheating. I do not wish to do that to her, and I expect the same consideration in return. I realize that my response may seem overly sensitive, particularly given my level of fatigue. Perhaps it was just an innocent conversation. However, considering the current state of our relationship, or more accurately, the total breakdown of it, given my wife's confession my extreme exhaustion, of which she was fully aware, her evasive and now accusatory behavior, the previous incident with my sister's boyfriend, his history as a convicted child offender, the fact that my sister and her boyfriend are informed about all of this, the confusion about where everyone was sleeping, their explicit statement about not coming over followed by their arrival, my discomfort with another man being in my home while I am away, and my wife's acknowledged dislike for him felt like a severe violation of trust. It made me feel like an outsider in my own home, witnessing a scene I could not comprehend and in which I was not included. It invoked feelings of hurt, confusion, and a profound sense of unease. I am uncertain about the implications for the future of my relationship, but I know I must communicate my feelings to my wife regarding how this affected me, preferably after I have managed to obtain some genuine rest, so I can approach the conversation with a clearer perspective. Nonetheless, given how our previous dialogue unfolded, I am not optimistic about achieving a productive outcome. Story 3. I moved in with my aunt and uncle, felt the control and lies, found an office he hid, and feared he was a killer hiding in plain sight. I am in my early 20s and a female, and I cannot stop reflecting on this time last year when I was residing with my aunt and uncle, both around 55 years old. I moved in with my aunt after leaving college because my aunt despises my father, who had expelled me from our home during high school. When she offered for me to live with her, it brought me comfort as I needed someone to confide in, and she comprehended my situation. My father can sometimes be remarkably harsh. Anyway, she and her husband are deeply religious. I was aware of this before moving in, and I did not mind, despite my upbringing as an atheist. Currently, I identify as agnostic, and I find discussions about theology enjoyable, even when I disagree with the views presented. Overall, I hardly knew my uncle and had not seen them in a long time, but I craved family support, so I took the step to move in. This relocation involved crossing state lines, which left me without any other sources of assistance. Upon my arrival, I immediately sensed something unsettling about my uncle. The manner in which he could influence my aunt's opinions was quite disturbing. Although their marriage did not show immediate signs of being abusive, I noticed subtle issues. He controlled all the finances, cash, credit cards, everything seemed to be in his name. She idolized him and frequently defended his actions, even when he was undeniably wrong, to the detriment of others. She lacks friends and can hardly drive, mainly due to diminished eyesight from a long-standing eye infection. I still care for her dearly, but she refuses to acknowledge her circumstances. He methodically separates her from those she loves. My father and grandmother have cut off communication with her. She often misremembers conversations because he convinces her that her memory is flawed. Witnessing this situation unfold in real time was profoundly tragic. Without a doubt, his overtly abusive control was one issue, but he had other troubling behaviors as well. He often referred to me as his daughter in public, and he attempted to persuade me into allowing them to adopt me when I turned 18. Although I initially brushed off his proposal as misguided concern, it felt unsettling. He loudly proclaimed himself a good Christian man, yet he displayed deceitful tendencies in private. He engaged in trivial lies constantly, and he could argue any point until he obtained what he wanted, making it seem futile to continue the discussion. He even utilized prior arguments that I had conceded due to frustration to support future claims. If I admitted to lying just to quell him, he would chastise me for being morally wrong and manipulative. His cheerful tone and constant smiling could not conceal the something sinister lurking in his eyes. I apologize for the disjointed nature of my thoughts. He also maintained an office that was perpetually locked, and no one was permitted entry. He pretended to be employed as a lawyer, yet he never passed the bar exam, which my father used to mock him for. Allegedly, he failed the ethics portion 3 times, and that was the maximum number of attempts allowed. This information originates from my father's account, so take it as you will. He would often say, "I am going to work," only to return an hour later with groceries, talking about his clients. He went on work trips each week, supposedly to visit his father. My aunt was always amazed, saying, "What a kind husband, not many would drive 5 hours just to take their parent to a doctor." Meanwhile, I thought to myself, well, yes, nobody does that. He was definitely concealing something. I initially suspected infidelity, but then he became aggressive and controlling towards me. I am reluctant to discuss this, as it is challenging to articulate. My fiancé, now my husband, was living with us as well, and I truly dislike recalling the trauma we endured. I have experienced nightmares centered on his cold, unfeeling demeanor and on the notion of going to hell, as religious guilt played a significant role in this turmoil. He also showed an unsettling interest in my sexual life. My husband and I slept in separate rooms by mutual agreement, but he continuously checked on us to ensure we did not spend time alone together. Initially, I thought it was linked to purity culture, but I now understand that it was meant to inhibit our communication. In front of strangers, he referred to my husband as his son and me as his daughter while I was holding my husband's hand, and we had to clarify his lies. It was deeply humiliating. Here are some direct quotes from my aunt during those few months that remain etched in my memory. To me, "He doesn't experience emotions like others, so you need to employ logic when discussing your feelings. He is a lawyer, so just rely on logic." I hesitated to share, but his memory isn't what it once was. He doesn't intend to forget, it just happens. Please don't tell anyone, as he is very embarrassed. At the time, I promised her I would keep it a secret, but he only seemed to forget things when it served his interests. In retrospect, it was undoubtedly a manipulation tactic. He was a victim of abuse in his childhood as well. If you exert effort to understand him, you could develop a better relationship. You cannot expect him to change. He is already quite old and set in his ways. Perhaps you should attempt to comprehend him more fully. During a phone conversation with him, you generate no income. I am inclined to ask you to leave since I am the only one covering the expenses in this house. All 3 of you are departing tomorrow. We left that evening but returned because we were uncertain where else to go. Confronting my aunt about this situation resulted in a barrage of shouting and insults, yet it was evident that he had no job and she was covering for him. Ultimately, we left out of fear, telling them we would return in a few days, necessitating time to decompress. We spent the night in a motel. He changed the locks even though we were legal residents by that time. I had police who were willing to assist me, but then he asked to speak with them privately, and they emerged saying I had to leave. I suspect he threatened or bribed them, but who knows? We barely managed to survive until we secured an apartment. I am unsure why I am documenting all this. Perhaps it is due to my anger or my concern that he may be involved in much more sinister activities, and that I almost exposed his deceit by daring to challenge his lies. I lived there for 3 months, but now, every time I watch true crime content, I have to switch it off because he possesses those vacant eyes. I cannot articulate it, but he has the demeanor of a serial killer. It torments me, I suppose. I wish to voice my concerns, but I do not know where to turn. I possess no tangible evidence, and I have been gaslit and manipulated as well. Perhaps I am merely imagining things or being overly paranoid. Nevertheless, it is chilling, and I cannot rid myself of it. For clarity's sake, this experience occurred quite some time ago. I was there from February to April of 2024. I had intended to stay longer, but we fled as soon as we could. My aunt is affluent and undoubtedly employed, whereas his employment is dubious and seemingly non-existent. He seems to use his father as an excuse with his wife and his work as an excuse to others. I do not know. We are now safe and away from that situation. We got married in July in a small ceremony with friends from our home state. The wedding became a significant point of contention. We wished to finance it ourselves and wed in August of this year. They made a deposit on a venue without adequately consulting us, securing a date before we were ready, which led to us being labeled as ungrateful brats. Consequently, We canceled the venue reservation and got our deposit back. However, the date had already been set with friends and family, so we ultimately wed in a park. Our wedding was a testament to our desire to approach our marriage on our terms, and I take pride in our decision to leave despite the difficulties. He even attempted to make us sign a contract preventing us from moving out until after our marriage, which perplexed me, and I did not even consider entertaining that conversation. He grew irate when I refused to engage in that discussion. Being a lawyer, he should understand that such a contract is not valid. Manipulation? I don't know. He is a truly reprehensible individual. My siblings cautioned me against this decision. Growing up, my father shared stories about how awful he was. Ultimately, I just needed a place to call home.